and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 138. And the title of this episode is Warning. The countdown to the economic collapse has begun. And we are going to get into why I believe that we are headed right towards this collapse. Everything is completely in motion, and we are going to see something occur this fall, and I put something together here of many different indicators to show why we are definitely headed this way. But before we get started, I just want to welcome all those new people that have signed up on YouTube and have signed up on the x22report.com site. Just a reminder for those new people who, of course, they haven't heard this before. If you'd like to hear these reports before they get on YouTube, you can come to the x22report.com site, download the MP3. It is only audio, and you can put this on your phone, you can download it to your computer, or you can listen right on the website. So if you want to listen to this before YouTube, and I always put the audio on the site beforehand, and it's usually between 5 and 7, depending. Some days it's a little bit earlier, some days a little bit later, but it's always around that time. And YouTube is usually much later because I have to compile it and then upload it. And you know how it is when you upload something to YouTube, not the fastest thing in the world. So you can listen to it much sooner if you come to the site. Now, let's get into the economic collapse news. And what we're seeing right now is the consumer confidence is missing the expectations by most on record. And this is the biggest miss since 1999. And it appears that people are finally starting to wake up, and they're seeing that mortgage rates are rising, gas prices are rising, and now there is a lag in the gas prices. We know that the price per barrel on the oil is going up, but people are not seeing it yet at the gas pumps, and they will actually, the prices have gone up a little bit, but they're going to start to see the prices start to move up now. And they have seen that food, especially, I keep track of it, that has gone up. I see milk rose up again. I think on my site I had it at $3.85. Now it's at $3.89. We see products being shrunk down. So people are starting to notice this, and they're starting to realize that something is going on here, and it's costing them more money to do the things they normally did. And they're just trying to figure out why this is happening, and this is why this is starting to drop. Now, if things are going so well in the economy, we have a certain number of indicators that have been showing us that things aren't going well. We saw retail sales showing a decline in people going out purchasing items they really don't need, or they don't need right now, so they're putting it off. We see housing starting to fall now. Mortgage applications taking a plunge. Builders are telling us the traffic is starting to ease up, and they're not seeing as many sales. And now in Chicago, they are having a bit of a problem. They are closing around 50 schools, and this is going to add, of course, to those people unemployed. That's 50 public schools. And you multiply that out, and that's more jobs of people being let go. And the judge just cleared the way for this to happen. We're also seeing that the Fed, of course, is losing the inflation battle. They've changed the calculation for inflation to make sure that all the sleeping people in the U.S. and across the world are saying, oh no, look, unemployment's fine, inflation is keeping at whatever 2% they're pretending it is, and no one's noticing anything different. Meanwhile, companies have been resizing packages, like, for instance, Breyer's ice cream. They have shrunk their gallon. It's no longer a gallon of ice cream. It's much smaller. And they're half gallon, I think it is. Now it's much smaller. And we're seeing this in many other different products. Plus, we're seeing those who can't really shrink it, the prices are going up. And we're seeing this mainly on the fresh food. And I'm not talking about the chemically altered food that's boxed that you find in the middle of the supermarket, because those are all chemically altered, and most of it's not even food. Most of it's just chemicals that make it look like food. I'm talking about real fresh food like apples, oranges, milk, fresh orange juice with nothing but oranges in there. Things like that. That's where the prices are going up. And you definitely noticed a difference. I notice a difference, and I'm sure that most of everyone else notices a difference. And the inflation is starting to get away. Now, especially now that countries are bypassing the US dollar as the reserve currency and making trades using other currencies, mostly China is doing this and making deals with many different countries. Those dollars that aren't being used are coming back where? Well, they're coming back to the U.S. And we see in many of the nations who are dumping their dollars, they're buying gold and precious metals instead to get rid of their dollars. And we're seeing this all happening all over the world right now. Okay. Now, talking about dollars and cutting cutting prices and inflation and all this other stuff, we know that the Obama administration has implemented the sequester, and they are shutting down the space surveillance system. And this is the space fence, which is officially known as the U.S. Air Force surveillance system, and it lets us know. It tracks, satellites, meteors, space debris, and anything heading towards the Earth. But because of the sequester, they just don't have enough money to keep this going. But instead, they have enough money to continue the aid to the Egyptian army. They have enough money to pay for the police officers that went from the Assad's army over to the rebels, and they're paying for their salary. We have enough money to purchase weapons to send over to Syria, to the paid mercenaries there. We have enough money to give aid to the Yemen government. And this is not like $20,000. This is millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. And we have this amount of money to give to all of these places, but not to America. Makes you think and wonder what's really going on here, which we do know what's going on. Now, housing, the housing starts permits, they miss, and the single-family housing market is the weakest since 2012. And what's happening is, again, there are so many foreclosures still on the books of the banks. The Fed is continually purchasing between 40 and 45 billion of these toxic real estate mortgages that are on their books, and they're also spending 40 to 45 billion on the Treasury bonds. And what we're seeing now is many people have foreclosed on their house, which means they don't have good credit anymore, which is understandable because this is what happens. They can't pay their credit cards, they lose their jobs, they're underemployed, and we're seeing this. And if we use the real calculation prior to 1994, we see that unemployment is 23%, even though they're reporting it at 7.4%. Now, with the amount of short sales, with the amount of foreclosures, with the amount of toxic real estate still on the books of the banks, and the Fed continually purchasing, they haven't let up, they're still doing it, we're not seeing people going out and buying single-family homes. What homes are being purchased? We are seeing that the purchasing is in the multifamily homes. Who are buying these multifamily homes? Hedge funds and investors to rent them out. This is where the sales are. And if you start breaking it down, you start to realize the housing recovery, there is no housing recovery. This is most of these funds buying this. Plus, they're purchasing these homes in cash. We're seeing a lot of foreign investors coming in and buying homes for cash. And we're seeing this happen all over the place. So the housing recovery is not really recovering like it like the boom before 2008, where Americans were going out and buying single-family homes, and you couldn't even find a home, and they couldn't build them fast enough because everyone was buying homes. And yes, there were investors buying homes for flipping and things like that. But now, those Americans, and many Americans, can't do it anymore. They don't have the credit, they don't have the money, they don't have the jobs. Their wealth, 38% of the Americans' wealth has been wiped out. Now, take all that into consideration, and they're trying to tell us there's a housing boom because Americans are going out and buying houses again. Does it really make sense? No, it doesn't. Now, we see, because of the economic collapse, we see war is starting to build now across the world. And we see the Middle East right now. We see what's happening. We see the terrorist threat locking down the Middle East, continue the drone strikes. We see Japan and China having a conflict over an island for natural resources. We see Russia and China backing Syria. We see exercises with the United States and Japan on how to take over an island. We see exercises with China and Russia. We see exercises with South Korea and the U.S. And we're seeing this all over the place. And there was going to be another exercise with the Egyptian army, which is paid and bought by the U.S. government. So we're seeing this happen all over the place. Now, China has launched a 4-day live fire naval exercise in the East China Sea that coincide with the anniversary of Japan's defeat in World War II. And they're flexing their muscles. They're protesting this anniversary of what's going on with Japan. And we are seeing this, each country flexing their muscle. We see each country building some type of warship. We're seeing them put up building anti-missile radar systems, which Russia is doing. We see countries like the U.S. moving into the Philippines and rotating personnel and bringing in airplanes, bringing in military assets to the island for them to be ready. We're seeing this happen all over the place. The Japanese right now were trying to change their constitution, where it allows Japan to maintain a military and to stop being a pacifist nation, where they're allowed to defend other allies and attack if they need to. And the head of the Japanese constitutional watchdog suggested on Friday that it would not block a bid by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to ease constraints on the country's military. Abe wants to lift the Japanese self-imposed ban on exercising the right of collective self-defense, and it looks like they are going to let him do it and not get in his way. So it looks like this is going to go forward. Now, going to the Middle East, we see Obama, who's on vacation right now, of course. He didn't seem too disheveled about this whole Egyptian thing. Like, you know, when they came out and said that Assad is using chemical weapons on their people, they were out there screaming and yelling and saying, this cannot happen. But here, the military, okay, of the Egyptian government is firing and killing people. But it seems like he's not really fazed by that. That's okay. Why is that? Well, the Saudi king gives his support to the Egyptian army. The United States gives billions of dollars to the Egyptian army as aid. The Saudis are controlled by the U.S. government, central bankers. The military is funded by the U.S. government and the central bankers. That's why President Obama doesn't give a crap. because they're doing exactly what they want, taking over the country, locking it down, declaring martial law, protecting the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, protecting the private Western central bank. That is what's happening. In the meantime, they are continuing this action to rile up all the other countries and to bring the war to Syria. It looks like this is exactly what they're trying to do, and it looks like yesterday when I reported that the paid mercenaries were hitting things in Beirut, they're trying to bring this out, and they're trying to bring that Al-Qaeda is a threat everywhere, and we need to go into Syria because of the Al-Qaeda presence in there, and that's why the CIA deputy director came out saying that the biggest threat is Al-Qaeda. If the U.S. government couldn't get into Syria and set up a government, that Al-Qaeda would be in there taking over, and really this is a ploy so the United States doesn't have to ask Congress permission to go to war, because it isn't war, it's a fight on terror, and terror in Syria from Al-Qaeda. We need to go in there. I mean, the U.S. government needs to say that we need to go in there, and they tried to assassinate Assad in his motorcade. It failed, and this is their next move. And they continually try to push this further and further and further because they are actually losing the war in Syria. The Assad forces are pushing them back. We have to remember that Russia and China back Syria and Iran. Israel, U.S. government, central bankers want to get into Syria and Iran so bad to set up the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, to set up a private Western central bank, and everything they've tried for the last 25 plus years has failed because, they're 3 to 5 years away from creating this nuclear weapon, but again, they've been saying this for over 20-something years. Okay, now let's move on here. Now, we are seeing our rights being taken away every single day. And we always see the mainstream news always reporting on how guns kill. They never show the stories of how guns save lives. And in Texas, a woman fires on 6 armed robbers. She was in the bathroom. Her husband was in the store. 6 armed robbers came in. They took her husband down. She came out. She had a gun on her and started firing at these people. And they fled the scene. And the police showed up, and they said, yes, they fled the scene. They don't know where they are. And but she protected the whole entire store. No one got killed. And this is the stories that we don't hear. If it was the opposite way, where these people came in and they killed everyone there, it would be the headline of the news: 6 people with weapons came in and killed everyone in the store. But this story you will never see on the news. Talking about guns. We talk about gun confiscation and how the U.S. government, with everything that they need to do, is get the guns away from the American people because they are most scared of Americans having guns, and an armed people is the worst thing they could possibly have. And they've tried to pass a gun bill which was shot down. President Obama asked to keep this bill pending in the Senate, so it is. The UN Arms Treaty is pending in the Senate, and New York jumped on this and passed their draconian gun law very quickly. We have to remember that President Obama has already set up the executive orders for the UN Arms Treaty. He has already set up executive orders for the gun bill because they know they will pass them when the time is right, and that's getting very, very close. So what New York did, and now many of the other states that are very close to going bankrupt, just like Detroit, and those cities and are, New York states are New York. We're looking at Connecticut, New Jersey. We're looking at Illinois. We're looking at California. And if you know, at Maryland, if you notice, it's all the states that are heavily populated are mostly gun-free zones, and now they're creating more and more gun laws. Just like we saw in New Jersey, Chris Christie coming out with the new law that anyone that's on the terrorist list cannot apply or get a weapon. Again, the terrorist list is secret. You don't know if you're on there, and if anyone's on there, you don't know how to get off. So they could put everyone on there, check against it, and say you can't own a gun. New York decided to go the route of what the federal government's trying to pass. They created the law, and this has to do with your medical background, and now they're going through all the medical records, and they're finding those people who are on any type of anxiety or any type of medication. They are going and sending letters home now saying that we're revoking your FID card and you're not allowed to own a weapon, which completely violates the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment. Oh, and the First Amendment. Oh, and the Fifth Amendment, because they're looking through someone's personal medical records. And this is a limit. The Second Amendment says, the rights of the people shall not be infringed upon to own and carry a weapon. And what they're trying to do now is use other techniques to limit and to take away the weapons, which under the law of laws, which is the Constitution, they cannot do. But now they're starting the gun confiscation in New York. And the people, this one in particular case, these people have no outstanding criminal convictions, no history of violent action, and they have absolutely nothing on their record whatsoever. It's just turning up and in their medical records that they're taking certain medications or they've seen a psychologist or something like that. DHS was involved in the past with this, and now they are starting to use this to start to confiscate weapons. Okay, we also have top security experts saying that, treating everyone like a potential terrorist weakens our ability to protect America, because it is ridiculous. The amount of data that they have to sift through, to protect us from wait a minute. They're not doing this to protect us from terrorists. They're doing it to spy on Americans, to place them into groups, to put them on lists, so when the time comes and the economic collapse hits, they know where to go. They know who to pick up. They know who are the troublemakers. And this is why they're doing it. For other reasons, they're also using it to steal patents, to blackmail people, to get investment ideas right before the collapse occurs. And we see this, and we see more and more drills around the U.S. happening. We've seen them in Miami, Houston, Illinois, L.A. We are now seeing SWAT teams raid companies because of tips and destroying the company and stealing things from the company. And we've had one, an organic farmer in Texas. A SWAT team raided the entire farm, destroyed the crops, looking for marijuana plants. And guess what they found? Absolutely nothing. In the report, it doesn't even say they had any type of warrant or anything to go in there. It was a plane that flew over, that took pictures, and this was their evidence. And the people there said they came under the guise that we were doing a drug trafficking, marijuana growing operation. They destroyed everything, and this is what property owner Shelley Smith said. And they went on to say, we've never hurt anyone. This is our land. We have the right to be secure in our person and our property, period. That's undebatable. And that is right. We have the First Amendment. We have the Second Amendment, the Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. We have the whole goddamn Constitution, Bill of Rights, giving us the right to have what this person is talking about, to be secure in their persons and property. And they have no right to do this. But the lesson here is that they are doing this more and more in these heavily armored, military-looking teams to come in to place fear on the people, and they're just doing this whenever they want. They're destroying, they steal, they have no evidence, they're just doing it. And this is to strike fear in the American people. Why? Because I am telling you, right now, and we're going to discuss it in a little while, that the economic collapse is going to happen this fall or early winter. And I'm saying this is part one of the collapse and how it's going to unfold. And I've discussed it briefly before, but I'm going to go further into it. And they're building this up throughout the Middle East with all the other countries being prepped and strategizing, moving their military assets, and putting everything into position. We've already had cyber attacks, and these are being blamed on China, Russia, Syria, Iran. They are starting the propaganda right now with the Washington Post and the CNN being hit by cyber attacks. And where are these cyber attacks coming? From the Syrian Electronic Army on Thursday. And what happened was the Washington Post and CNN were hit, and when you went to the websites, they were redirected to the Syrian Electronic Army's website for a period of about a half hour to an hour. And that's how they knew it was the Syrian Electronic Army. But then we have to look at what's really going on in the Middle East, how they are prepping for war. Yesterday I told you there were 2 aircraft carriers sitting right outside, and another ship, also a big deck warfare ship sitting outside right there by Yemen in the Persian Gulf and in the Gulf of Aden, and everything is being prepared. Their drone strikes, they have ordered more drones. They are hitting their targets in Yemen. They are using the drones all over the place. We've had reports now that there are paid mercenary soldiers being trained by the U.S. to go into Syria to establish a no-fly zone with other countries. All the soldiers are standing by in Jordan and we know for a fact that F-16s and other military assets were shipped to Jordan for a drill, and I reported this on a while back, and they did not come back. They stayed there, now all being prepared for what is coming. And they know that the economic collapse is coming, and they know it's happening this fall. We also know that the fiscal budget for the supplying the paid mercenary rebels in Syria ends September 30th. We also know that the Fed is threatening to taper because they believe that everything is going well. They are using the propaganda and all over the news. They're telling you that the housing market is recovering. They are saying that unemployment is coming down. They believe that unemployment will hit around 7%, hopefully by the end of this year. They are saying that the economy is building and it looked like it's going to recover. Obama was on his campaign mission across the country, spreading the word of the housing recovery and how the economy is doing much, 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 much better. And yesterday I said that there is a Million Muslim March on 9/11, and this is a complete setup, it looks like, for some type of false flag. It's potential false flag. Something might happen. It's just funny that all of a sudden this September 11th, Muslims are going out there and having a march, and they want, they're showing that they have the same rights of everyone else, which they do, but it's just a very odd time to start doing this, and how they're preparing to do this on Washington. Now there are other things that are happening that are building this up for this fall, early winter. Something's going to happen. We also had Michael Pinto coming out saying that looks like this is being propped up for something happening in October. Greg Manarino also came out and said something is coming. He's spoken to a lot of Wall Street people, and this is also heading this way. Steve Quayle, his Guerrilla Economist V, is also reporting this, that something is about to happen. The IMF is telling all central banks, and IMF, the central banks of central banks, is telling everyone to start to taper because of the bubbles that are being created. And We are seeing this happen all over. Now, the SEC has approved ICE's planned takeover of the New York Stock Exchange. The Securities Exchange Commission has approved the takeover of the New York Stock Exchange, Euronext by Intercontinental Exchange, and the deal, which will give ICE control of LIF, Europe's second largest derivatives market, is expected to close early September. And the combined ICE New York Stock Exchange, Euronext, will be the third largest exchange group globally, behind number one, Hong Kong. Okay, so we have that happening. Now we have the record high demand for physical gold threatens to break the back of the paper gold market. And what we're seeing is that JP Morgan has not yet satisfied and delivered on the June silver future contract. And what we're seeing is that JP Morgan is using hidden entities to hog 90% of the July silver deliveries. It appears that JP Morgan doesn't have the silver to meet June delivery, and they're trying to replenish as much as they can. And we're also seeing that the allocated gold account raids have resulted in 40 to 60,000 tons of gold. We've seen that the price of gold has been pushed down, so the central banks and other countries and the banks here can stockpile gold to create shortages, and that is what we're starting to see. And now JP Morgan, okay, now since they knocked down the price of gold and silver and everything else so they can gobble up all the gold, everything they possibly can for themselves, now they're telling everyone that gold is bullish, to buy gold. Well, guess what? Everyone out there who hasn't purchased silver or gold, you have a tiny window right now to do it before you can't get any and gold starts to skyrocket. They will keep gold down till the very last minute. We see gold going up. It was struck down early in the morning. It's gone up a little bit. And we see the stock market, they are using everything in their power to keep the market where it is. It closed around down 31 points. Gold is at 1374 as the time I'm reporting this. And we're starting to see everything be put into motion. And the other things that we're starting to see is that China and Japan and other foreign nations are starting to sell off their treasuries. And China and Japan led an exodus from U.S. treasuries in June after the first signals the U.S. central bank was preparing to wind back its stimulus. And the data showing that they accounted for almost a record $40 billion of net foreign selling of treasuries. China, the largest foreign creditor, reduced its treasury holdings to $1.27 trillion, and Japan trimmed its holding for a third straight month to $1.08 trillion. And we're seeing this happen all over the place. Now again, when these foreign countries are selling the treasuries, somebody has to buy them. Well, guess what? The Fed's balance sheet is growing. It has grown for the second straight week on a rise in its holding, and they are starting to purchase these treasury bonds. Now, how does this fit into what I've been talking about the collapse coming part one this fall and early winter? What we're going to see, okay, is that the central bank of central banks have said that everyone needs to start tapering. So they put out the word that they're going to taper to see what would happen with the market. They saw that the market's going to dive. Okay, that was their litmus test. Excuse me. This was their test to see what would happen. They saw what would happen because why? The Fed is the entire market. That's why they're the only ones there. So what will happen? They know if they actually go ahead and they taper, they know the market's going to come down. So they will create an event. I've said this before. They will create an event and they will solve the event. The event could be a cyber attack on the financial institutions, on the banks, which will then close the banks down. This will most likely happen on a Friday. The banks will be closed down. I'm sorry, for all those people who didn't take their money out, your money is now gone. It is frozen. You will never, ever be able to get it after that. Once the banks have frozen the accounts Friday, they will tell everyone the banks will reopen on Monday. They will not. The banks will not reopen on Monday. What will happen is that they'll say these cyber attacks are continuous from, at this point, it looks like it might be Syria if they can't get the war going over in the Middle East. So right now it looks like they're building the propaganda to be Syria. So what will happen is they will blame this on Syria right now. And they'll say that they cyber attacked the financial institution, and they are looking into see how hard everything has been. The stock exchange will also be closed come Friday into Monday when they tell us that they will open it again, but it will not be opened. Now, at this point, everyone will be sitting there not knowing what's going on, thinking that their money is completely safe, which it is not. At this time, because of what has happened and what the news is going to report, that the Syrian Electronic Army has created this collapse of the economy, where the Fed, the government, were about to start to taper. The economy was on the verge of coming out of the recession of 2009, and we were really headed to really bringing down unemployment. GDP is up because they recalculated all the way back to 1929, and we were making great strides, except for this. And according to the FDIC, Bank of England document, under the new law, there are no bailouts allowed. So what do we have to do? Well, to keep these banks and to keep them operating, we will need to do bail-ins. And what this means is we need to take maybe only 8 to 10% of your money, just like they said in Cyprus. But we all know they didn't take 8 to 10%, they took 47%. And they're still under capital controls to this day. It's been over 120 days. The same thing is going to happen here in England, in the European nations. The entire economy at this point will start to collapse because the faith of and the belief that everything was okay will start to fall apart. When this happens, the other countries are going to try to get rid of their treasuries as fast as they can. The other countries will start to dump the dollar as fast as they can. When this happens, the government will come out and they will use some type of excuse that says we are trying to remedy the situation. The Fed agreed to double up its efforts, or maybe even triple their efforts, because we have to remember, we see it right now, the foreign nations are starting to dump the treasury, just on the talk of taper, not even doing it yet. So they will start to increase the amount of quantitative easing to cover and to buy up the amount of treasuries that are coming back here to the U.S. This is why they will have to double or triple the amount of quantitative easing. And as the market and the dollar, people trying to get rid of it in other countries, starts to head back here, we will see massive inflation. So the Fed and the government will start to go into overdrive to try to control what is going on. In the meantime, the government will get Congress to go to war with Syria. And this will be the beginning of World War III. At this time, the entire economic collapse will be shrouded in war talk. Things will not be as what everyone believes, except for those people who are awake. They will think that this is a real attack. They will think that their money is still safe in the banks. They will think that the banks will be opening very shortly, but it won't. 1, 2 weeks later, the news will come out that the banks are still need to be closed and they have to up the amount of money they take. But don't worry, we're going to replace that money with bank stock or treasury bonds. And your money is still safe, but we need it right now to prop up the banks. And all capital controls will be in effect. You'll only be allowed to take out a certain amount of money. And businesses will start to lay off. People will not have jobs. We've already heard that Wall Street this coming fall is going to lay off 100,000 people. We've also heard many companies come this winter are going to lay off people, in not just 1 or 2, in the hundreds and in the thousands. This whole thing will be part 1. The Fed and the government will do everything they can to pump this up, and they will to a certain extent. Just like they did in 1929, they pumped the market back up, but guess what happened in 32? The market completely collapsed again. We will see this happen probably in the springtime. And we will probably, that will be the end, and the spring, early summer, the real entire crash at this point. And we do have a certain window right now. I do not sell gold or silver. I have no connection to anyone that does. I have no connection to Costco or any store to buy your goods and things like this. Everything that I am seeing, everything that I hear, all fits in. I am painting a picture of what will, huge probability, will happen. And again, everything can change, but right now we are on this course. It is thundering toward us. And if you look anywhere else, any other alternative media, you will get bits and pieces and pretty much the same story. And we are seeing billionaires like Soros and other people putting bets on the market coming down. We have them removing themselves from stocks because they already know things are going to happen. And there was also an article in Yahoo that says, beware of the black swan coming out of Washington. And they go on to say that something in the stock market around October or November, we might see a decline. That was in, I think, Yahoo Finance. I have it on the site here on x22report.com. Something very interesting that Alan Greenspan said. It begins and ends with housing. If we start losing control of rates, all of the sudden, what we're going to have is a collapse in the housing market. GDP is going to start falling apart. Employment, and then the collateral damage of consumer spending because rates are going higher. Then the collapse. We are headed toward something definitely. And someone on the People put something from Ian Rand, and I also believe that V also said this, and I thought it was perfect for this report. And we can see this happening right now. And for those people who weren't on the People that read it or didn't listen to V, this is what was said. When you see that in order to produce, you need to seek permission from those who produce nothing. When you see that money is flowing to those who deal in not in goods, but in favors. When you see that men get rich more easily by graft than by work. When you see your laws no longer protect you from them from you. When you may know when your society is doomed. This fits in perfectly because we see this happening right now. I implore everyone, please, please prepare yourself. If you cannot buy gold or silver, and I know everyone is in different financial, um, in a different financial state, buy food, buy water, buy a weapon. If you only can buy cans of beans, beans are very high in protein. If you only can buy jars of peanut butter, buy jars of peanut butter. Buy some toiletry things like toilet paper, something to dissolve your waste. Just things that batteries, solar powered lights, candles, things that you will need to survive. Look around. Look at the things that you will need. I have some things that I've purchased. I have them on the site under the resources tab. You can go to any other store to buy them. A lot of the stuff is not expensive, and I know things are tight for many people. I buy them a little bit at a time, but then again, I've been preparing for quite a while, and for those who are just getting started, I know this is going to feel like this dread come over you, the feeling of fear, the feeling of why didn't I know this, but just put that aside and just purchase what you need to do just to get prepared. This is an insurance policy for what is coming. Just like you buy insurance for your car, your house, your health. This is an insurance policy for what is coming. And again, we've seen this in the past. We've seen our government officials lie to us. And one of the things that Ronald Reagan has said, when you hear these 9 words, this is when you should worry. And here are the 9 words. And these are the 9 scariest words, he says, in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Listen, everyone. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.